has also joined us. So we'll be at full strength very shortly. Wonderful. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a period of public comment. I see on the screen Mr. Paulson or Miss Paulson. Patrick? Would you like to make comment?
Yeah.
Oh, that's you. Oh man, would you like to make comment? All right. Seeing that there's no members of the public seeking to make comment, we'll move on to approval of the minutes from our November 17th meeting and December 15th meeting. They were circulated previously. Motion to approve both sets of minutes. All right. Motion moved and seconded. All those in favor please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Any abstentions? So ordered. Well, okay. The unfortunately, you'll note that our manager of the Hark office, Adrian Swinton, is not with us. She had a death in the family. Her uncle passed today, and our thoughts and prayers are with her in that situation. Jason and I did have an opportunity to chat with her. So, Jason, you want to share some of the update notes that she provided?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chair, Co-Chair. So, bullet point 2 here, the vacancies, obviously that is being cleared right in front of our eyes. We've got our 2 new members, one of which is halfway there. We'll get that notification formally, and obviously having Reverend Shoemaker, who's also my Reverend, and there's also, just for those that are listening, is the Reverend at St. Stephen's Episcopal, which is a stone's throw from here. So we're pleased to have you join us. I know you are well embedded in this work, and you're going to be a great contribution. So thank you. The workshops, I do not recall where we were with the workshops. Let me go to bullet number 3, the work plan. So coming out of, this is kind of going to dovetail between this and then number 6. The work plan, it's my understanding from Ms. Swinton is going to put together, is basically our map forward with all the recommendations that were made in our preliminary report that was submitted to council, I believe, at the December 20th meeting. Council members received that. We will have a report given by Ms. Swinton at the next council meeting, which is going to be January 24th. And that work plan will be disseminated then and discussed then, because basically, I think as a council member, it's helpful to know what Ms. Swinton's working on. And also as part of that work plan, embedded in that work plan are the recommendations that we've come with the first 3 subcommittees. And Jerry, remind me, and Carol, the 3 subcommittees that have already provided
housing and mobility,
economic empowerment,
criminal adjustment, and economic empowerment.
Okay. So the work plan is basically to prioritize those and start sending those to our standing committees, which were named this week. So that information is public. So the thought would be for our community development and to work with Adrian will basically, and you all will basically divide and prioritize which one of those are going to go to community development, which one is going to go to public safety, which one is going to go to other standing committees. And they really get to work on taking things from theory to action. But that still has to be prioritized really with Adrian leading that. Simultaneously, we will have to discuss tonight the progress forward with the 4 remaining subcommittees from the Special Commission, which are Youth and Education, Health Disparities, History and Culture, and then the internal review, which is really just how the city operates internally in relation to race and equity. So that's my update on the work plan. I'm sure Jerry's got something to add.
So there are a couple of additional points. We probably should circulate the job description for the position.
Yes.
Because the job description just includes responsibilities of the manager for various forms of oversight in monitoring and advising the city on human affairs and racial conciliation, discrimination activities. So 100% of her time is not allocated to the work of the commission. And in our conversation, we wanted to be certain that we could manage expectations, that we knew what portion of her time was available to us. And as we set our priorities and that which activities, and she will be coming forward with that. On the workshops, she has confirmed the availability of funding. We have a consultant who submitted an agreement. On order for the agreement to be put in place, a check has to be written. And Adrian is in the process of getting that processed, and we're hoping to have the first workshop in February. Hopefully when we meet with the city council on the 24th, she will have cleared that and we'll be able to announce that as part of the work plan going forward. She's also working on scheduling, I think she mentioned at a previous meeting, a meeting where the HARC commissioners would be invited to meet with the Department of Core team. And that's also a calendar event. She's followed up with the Rapid Transit staff. We have a note that indicates, and I'll read this information because it's kind of an update. And this is from Morgan Grimes, the communication outreach specialist for the Berkeley, Charleston, Dorchester County Council of Governments. In regard to the Rapid Transit project, she foresees being collaboration opportunities with the ongoing transit-oriented development study that is being conducted to address livability and affordability. The TOD Phase 2, they go in acronyms, that's transit-oriented development. Phase 2 will have a kickoff either this February or March. When the scope of that contract is finalized, we will likely start community engagement activities in March or April. This includes transit-oriented development workshops where we would definitely appreciate your insight and involvement that referring to the commission. So following through on Mike Seeking's leadership in that area. So we can expect in March and April to be actively engaged in that activity. And that relates in part. In addition, she's met with the staff who were responsible for the economic mobility program study, if you will, funded by the National League of Cities. And we anticipate some of those responsibilities and activities being able to tie into the work of the economic empowerment recommendations. And I think that's all I have at this time.
Thanks, Chair. Let me just add one piece to that for Adam, and I didn't get your first name, sir. Tom. We try to pretty informal, so we try to go by first names. So Tom and Adam, just some context for you all. We started the commission first meeting was June. So the first month or two of the commission's work, just want to give you some context so you get it, was spent on rules and kind of figuring out procedures for how we would operate. We were meeting once a month. So as you can imagine, it took 2 or 3 months to get to a place where we approved some rules and really kind of what we're going to focus on. Next couple of months, which are most recent months, I would say in the fall until now, the fall up until now, were spent on looking at the special commission's report with 125 recommendations and looking at all those recommendations, prioritizing those recommendations in the lens of 3 basically groupings, which was economic empowerment, help me out, criminal justice, and what was that? Housing mobility. So we looked at all those priorities and kind of figured out through those lens which ones would move forward, which ones wouldn't move forward. So we're at this critical point where we've got 4 additional subcommittees that were part of the special commission. And again, those were youth and education, health disparities, internal review, and history and culture. So our next phase now, as you come on, we'll be looking at those recommendations in that special commission report through the lens of those 4 topic areas. So we'll have that group working, and then also we have to go back and look at the recommendations that we parsed out for the previous 3, start putting those on an agenda, kind of legislative agenda for our standing committees. So there's kind of 2 things that are going to be happening simultaneously. Just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that. And any questions? Yeah.
Charge of this committee is to bring recommendations to the council.
Well, the first charge was to look at the 125 recommendations from the special commission. And so once we get that done, correct, and the next charge would be if there's any additional recommendations, would filter through this commission, be approved by this commission, and ultimately that approval would get us to a place where they would be then filtered to a standing committee, and the standing committee would discuss those recommendations. Does that make sense for everybody? Just want to make sure, because I know it's a lot of acronyms and a lot of complexity and nuance, but I want to make sure everyone's on the same page there.
So one of the things that Adrian will be focusing on is updating our contact list, adding everybody's names and contact information, also who the appointing individual was, so that we can, in fact, lean on when you look at the list of which standing committees we're talking to. If the members of your council, your appointer is on that standing committee, you have an opportunity to speak with them a little bit if they have questions about what our recommendations are. So that's going to be important. Also, I was looking in my packet for the rules that we adopted. And I know we made some slight changes to the draft. So we should also put that together in a package along with the ordinance. And each of the members should also receive a copy of the special commission report and the disparity study done by the Avery Institute, which is kind of the foundation document. All that is homework in preparation for our workshops as we move forward. So that's also part of the work that Adrian is prioritizing for us. Okay. Moving on to
Excuse me, Jerry, I have a question. I just want to make sure I understood what you said. I think I heard you say that the dates for the workshops are not set
that's correct.
because, based on the minutes from last time, they were set and I have them on my calendar. So I need to, if you're saying that's not the dates, I need
So
to know.
what Adrian communicated, we have those dates. The consultants agreed to that, keep those on your calendar, but if we don't engage the consultant, the dates may change.
Okay.
All right. That's probably more accurate.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the critical piece is to get the consultant on the contract. Well, apologize if I created no confusion. That's correct. Okay. Actually, a very quick meeting in December that you guys had on my birthday. You approved the progress report that was drafted and set forward. I was wondering whether or not there were any observations, questions, concerns, particularly I think what Adrian did was take the information that each of the subgroup working groups put together and kind of cobbled it together. So those of us who were on one might not have reflected on what was in the other. So I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about any observations that you might have. Anything that you think that we perhaps should put particular emphasis on as we present to the city council. None?
I'll say something, Jerry. I think if we had to put an emphasis on anything, I think it's more so
recognizing the work of the special commission, and that pretty much everybody agreed that the recommendations do align themselves with the city plan. So just if we had to say anything, I think that we would definitely want to emphasize that. So that the special commission and those that worked on this special commission, that we recognize that their work wasn't in vain at the end of the day.
So, to that end, we've asked Adrian, and I believe Jason's also speaking. Huh? Okay. Right. So the notion is that, along with our initial progress report, the communicating to the council and hopefully them communicating out to the members of the special commission. Thank you for the service, all right? In terms of that work, that the information that they provide us with allows us to set move forward, and hopefully they will be invited to the meeting, all right, and be acknowledged at that time. Okay, we have asked Adrian to place the progress report online, so it would be available to the public. I think there are probably a couple, of need a little introduction so folks know what this report is. There may be a couple of minor grammatical and spelling errors that need to be corrected, but hopefully the corrected version will be available so well in advance of the meeting of the 24th. So when it's posted on the city council agenda, folks will have an opportunity to read it in advance and make comment if they so choose. Members of council, though, the 24th is also a state of the city message, right?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Yeah.
You mean it's not a committee to usher in the mayor and it, nobody else.
Stop.
Okay, right. So that, and I also noticed on the agenda there was another item besides the special commission. Well, maybe perhaps I was wrong. Okay, I mean, I'm just, one, please, members of the commissioners put the 24th on your calendar and plan to be in attendance and in full force. Okay. So you're going to send us a gift from wherever you were. Thank you very much. Gratefully to be part of it. 5 p.m.
The mayor's.
That's what's posted. That's right.
Presentation.
The recognition.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So that moves us to a couple of things. This is an intersection. The path forward talks about, in the report says that we're going to have workshops, okay, and recommendations will be sent to standing committees. As Jason has already indicated, transportation is one. Housing, mobility will go to community development, and the third committee would be public safety, where our first set of recommendations would go. The question of how and this is where the notion of talking to your member of council who's on that committee, right? While Adrian is speaking to the chair to make sure it gets scheduled. She'll communicate to us when it's scheduled, right? And we'll ask you to make certain that you speak with your council member, appointed council member who's on that committee, okay? So that they have the benefit of the level of information that you have about about this, the different recommendations that are coming forward. And I think that becomes part of our work, each of us, as that process plays itself out. In addition, then we have these other four. The first round, in order to get to meet the deadline, we chose 3 to provide commentary for, as well as describing what work we're doing as a body to evolve. The question is, what's your pleasure? Do we, now that we'll have 13 members, have 4 committees, 3 people on a work group and each tackle one, or do we take them, if we set a goal, for example, of having all 4 done by July, assuming that we take January and February reaction and response, get started in March, April, May, and June, that would give us 4, right? We could do 1 per month as another model, or we could do some version of that. And I'm just curious in terms of what members of the commission think would be the best approach. Carol?
Yeah, sorry, I was sort of spacing out, but I think we go back to what you said earlier about the 3 groups, which standing committees. I mean, my understanding is 3 topics that we have little working group conversations about wrote up for our progress report. We combined economic empowerment with housing and mobility, knowing that housing and economic development are going to go hand in glove with both the rapid transit system as well as the road line, right? So those 3 topics need to go to the community development standing committee. Then you've got your criminal justice, and then you have the other one, which is yeah, okay.
Just move down. So it's housing, mobility, criminal justice, and economic empowerment for the 3.
Yeah.
So we merged, with Mike's suggestion of leveraging the rapid transit project, which would address mobility and economic empowerment.
Right.
And perhaps housing. We made that decision.
Right. So we didn't mention economic empowerment when you were just recounting the 3,
Okay.
Topics that we've already looked into. I just want to.
All right. My bad. Sorry about that.
No problem.
So what's your thoughts? The work is to delve into the reports, the special commission recommendations, look at what's in the master plan, assess as best we can with feedback from the core group, what council and the administration is doing that might be related to what's in the special commission report or in the master plan, and then make recommendations. Right. That's basically the work. We've got 4 additional groups. Internal review speaks to kind of cross-cutting across all city departments and agencies. The culture, history and culture, and health and environment kind of stand alone. The youth and education, again, stand alone. So, and I know this is a question of where people kind of passionate might be. If your passion is, we have enough passion, right, to do 2 at a time. That's one thing. If we don't have enough passion, then we need to do 1 to make sure that we do it thoroughly, each month. What's your thoughts? How would you like to approach you up?
Yeah, Jerry, I'm eager to hear others' opinions on this, but having served on special commission, I can tell you that the youth and education component is a bit of an anomaly because we don't have a direct standing committee that can funnel those recommendations. And I will say that the recommendations may say this the most supportive way possible. I don't know if there are specific recommendations that council could take up. So I would almost ask us to table that But, you know, I am passionate about those issues, clearly. I think I would almost like us to focus on, take that off the table for a second, focus on health disparities, environment, general review, history and culture, and then come back as a team, as a group, maybe flesh out some recommendations that we could then figure out where they would go, because that's the issue. We really have a standing committee for them to wrestle with, debate. So just my thoughts.
Other reactions, conversation?
I think the kind of work that we did on these topics would be really hard in this format with everybody. And so I'm in favor of working again in small groups.
Okay.
I agree with that. And it also occurred to me that, I mean, I think I followed along with the internal review, but knowing that Adrian, a lot of her day-to-day work is to be coalescing the group, she calls it the core group, that is working on equity issues within the city, you know, internally. So I don't see how we can really go independent of the work that Adrian's doing on that whole topic. So I would sort of take that one offline too, or at least, you know, we could have like a working group that met with her and the core group and sort of fleshed out the things that they want to put forward to the council in a next 6-month time frame, but not really take leading responsibility to work on that topic.
Other comments? See?
It may put Adrian in a weird spot, but I guess that's sort of what her role is here. But I think it might be a good idea to certainly have her involved, but it still may take policy changes that only city council can do.
I mean, the council wouldn't be acting, I'm saying in terms of guiding council.
Yeah, I would almost view her as like leading that subgroup to some extent, because we would really need to know what she in her time here has seen that needs to change, and what, you know, she can do, and versus what needs to go to council.
Carol?
I agree. I agree that I think small groups were pretty effective in working on the first 3 items, and I believe that's a good model for us to continue with the other items.
So small group approach is what seems to be our direction. We should, I'd urge the members, commissioners, to take a look at the recommendations and take a look again at the master plan and see if there's anything that sets off bells in your head that excites you, because it is work to be done. And if you're interested, it's better to have folks working on stuff that they're interested in than stuff that they just got to do before we just assign you to something. Because we're going to ask everyone to participate on one of the work groups. My 2 cents on the internal review, for example, and well, let me do youth and education groups. Okay, so Tuesday night, City Council had a conversation about crossing guards in schools, and there was a discussion about, well, the district discontinued crossing guards. Jason said no. The sheriff's department is responsible for crossing guards. Councilman Waring then said he got a note from former Judge McFarland that the city used to hire staff to crossing guards. Okay, so the whole question of, you know, the city's role, all right, in education, one of the pushback to the special commission, there's not the city doesn't have a direct role. And this is an example where there is a role and a relationship. The city has school resource officers, right, in the buildings. Okay, and there's a discussion about that. So while there's not I mean, it could be, I guess the school resource officers could go through the public safety committee, all right, And because the youth and youth development stuff speaks to recreation, right? There could be a link there. So I'm just saying, and summer's coming, and last summer we had a problem with the pools perhaps not being open. And that goes up to a level, and then the question of which pools are open and which ones are not, and what neighborhood, and who has access, and that sort of thing. So there are equity questions, and while it does not necessarily, and the master plan does have a recreation component to it. So I just to say that we completely step back from that. Have us think about it, okay? And so at that internal review, this is the old city administrator, right? The processes of hiring, training, recruitment, retention, and all of that cuts across all the departments. It's clearly an intersectional kind of situation. And the other thing that the master plan speaks to that we commented on in our initial report was the need for enhanced citizen engagement and participation, right? And that cuts across all departments. And there's some concern also about the accessibility through IT and social media and that sort of thing, which we struggle with as a commission, and other departments struggle in terms of good things happening, folks don't know about it. Okay, bad things happen, it gets reported in the newspaper. That's how people know about it. All right. So again, in terms of saying pushing stuff back, the idea of considering trying to do all four. All right, bringing it forward. We may not have much to say, okay, but there I think could be important kind of conversation. And in my head, I'm listening to some of the pushback from the special commission, and it crafted and kind of put the recommendations in a box, all right, which may not have really fit where the recommendations were. So I just challenge us to think whether or not we can, put youth and recreation and education on the back end. I would put, if I was doing it, I would put internal affairs on the front end because it cuts across all departments and agencies. The city's talking about problems of retention, all right, and hiring, and if we can be helpful to them in terms of thinking through that with the equity lens, and the master plan also speaks to that kind of as a concern. I think it would be helpful. So that's my observations.
I'm going to clarify my comments about youth and education because I feel like I didn't do a good job articulating them. So I'm passionate about public education, and I work for the school district. I think it should be the priority, which is why I actually think we should take it off, because when I'm looking at the recommendations that were made, I've looked at the recommendations, and the recommendations are not, they were not up to the snuff that I think this group could assemble. And if we put our heads together and focus solely on that, also prioritizing our time over the next couple months. If the pleasure of this group and the commission is to divide these, four, I'm fine with that. I'm just trying to think about the priority of our time. The youth and education piece, I think we could put together some stronger, more alignable recommendations that are more relevant. For example, the crossing guards, the summer opportunities for our students. I have said on record, and Carol's been there, I think the city should be more involved in our youth activities at the city level, and we're not. So, but those weren't reflective in the special commission recommendations, is what I'm saying. And I'd like them to be. I think the recommendations can be a bit better. So either it comes from this group or it comes at a later time. That's clarifying my comments.
I'm just trying to stir up some thought here. I'm just trying to generate some thoughtfulness, because that's what we're supposed to be.
Right, and I didn't mean to say that we shouldn't take up internal review. I believe that that is a major, part of Adrian's work. And I do think that we should, sort of respect and work in parallel or tandem, but not say that we're gonna form a little working group that she basically just listens to us. And come back with things that, would not be in alignment or would not be supportive of the internal review that she has put together, her colleagues within the staff to really take on some of that. And then we can be a backstop. I mean, I think that's the good role for the people who are recommending policy changes or any sort of human resources procedures. We can take the heat, but I think we need to listen to Adrian and her staff colleagues first.
So what I'm hearing is small groups. We don't have to decide today, okay, which small groups. I'm suggesting that is homework. We give some thought to that between now and our next meeting, okay, and we come back and pull things in alignment. One of the things that's really interesting to me is that the city, for example, is carrying the fair housing ordinance on the agenda that's been deferred a couple of times. And part of what our charge is kind of bounces up against the state human affairs, housing stuff, the who's got what authority. And if, that's a piece of the housing component that we did not talk about. There is a challenge there. Also at the council meeting, there was discussion about taking advantage of is the state statute 236, which allows for raising revenue for special purposes. At the local level. So the question of whether or not any of the recommendations that we're talking about, all right, has relevance for 236. So we need to get smart about what that means and know whether or not that's something that we can foster a conversation. Yeah.
Just to expand on that, I think that's such a good point. And I'll tell you that there is a lot of willingness on city council right now to be creative with how we use that power for however long we have it. I mean, like really, as we're going through this and identifying, maybe there's a funding challenge to implementing something. Think about who we can put a fee on and what we can call it to emphasize, why we need it and why it's a good thing. Be a little creative because we certainly would like to be.
To that, because I know there are folks listening here in this room, and myself, who are, oftentimes want to make sure that the city is fiscally responsible. And people talk about taxes. I want to set the stage for folks, particularly here and listening. The city has very limited authority and ability to raise taxes. Our main, and I've shared this with you, Carol. And it's property taxes. It's our Stephen helped me out. Our parking. We rely on these. So the city is really pigeonholed in many ways in how we can raise revenues. So oftentimes it's on the backs of homeowners. This act gives us greater authority to levy fees and taxes for special purposes. So, for example, if we want to build, additional recreation facilities, or if we want to focus on parking. The discussion the other night was around school crossing guards and funding, improvements to streets. we're no longer, instead of having to go to the county, to the state, and wondering how we're gonna get that funding, this could be a potential source of that. So I just want to make it clear for folks listening that the city is really hamstrung and has very limited ability to raise revenues.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I would pitch in here, and that's the first thing I'd say is, I'm a smaller government advocate. Jason and other council members heard from me, before the last meeting about the potential increase in property taxes. And I reminded him and them that, not only, were you looking at that, but the county council is also looking to say, well, where can we get ours? So as a concerned citizen of the city of Charleston, Jason, and I want to give him kudos. He responded, he gave me a very thoughtful response, and I really appreciate that. And that's what I think our city councilman need to do, is respond to you and let you know, okay, here are all the facts. And so again, I just want to advocate that, the city and county taxpayers can only hold so much burden, and it's not unlimited, and we have to make sure that we remember that.
Well, let's just say the main example that I heard the council discuss as an illustration of what this new Act 236 empowers municipalities to do, or enables municipalities. That their example was adding a flat rate fee on every hotel reservation. So I think that's the common practice. It's not to go after extra money out of citizens' pockets, but it's to be as inventive as possible about the users of the city that really do not pay their fair share to be those users.
Richie.
We're sort of getting on a tangent here, but
No, we're not.
these fees are the type of it's like a gas tax. It is. I mean, even if you're a libertarian, this is a perfect tax. It's paid by the people who derive the most use out of whatever it is, and we can target it so it's not spread to those who don't use it, or we can spread it broadly and it can be shared by a lot. So and that's what I meant. I mean, nobody wants to overburden them, and at the end of the day, we're just making recommendations to city council, and city council will certainly take that into account. I can tell you just from my perspective that if property tax appears in an email, I'm going to get 100 responses, and with repeated follow-up, which is a great thing, and I love having that back and forth with people. But so nobody's going to blindly impose something, but we really want to hear the recommendations, because it's something I think that we're all thinking about, and how we can use that authority effectively.
And I think I'm sorry.
Yeah, one response there is, I totally agree, Steve. I know, we have to provide services, but unfortunately, as I'm sure many of you saw and think, we just got through with the third increase in gas tax by the state, which Governor Haley signed, years ago. And unfortunately, as many of you, I'm sure, see in the newspaper, our roads don't appear to have improved to the level that many thought would happen with those increased taxes. So again, it's just a matter of, what your perspective is on, what's being asked to be paid, and then what do we see really happening as a result of that.
And my observation is, again, as an old city manager, all right, the opportunity for a kind of thoughtful conversation to craft and think who are the payers, who benefits, right? And how, even though there's a specific kind of targeted impact, it benefits other folks. That part of what it is that we're trying to harmonize, if you will, across the city. And so this is a great opportunity for us to do that and have those conversations, those difficult conversations, right, before they get to city council, where they'll be difficult again.
Or longer.
Or longer, yeah. So, to put a ribbon on this, we are going to think about which of the 4 remaining areas we need to move on. We'll sharpen our focus on what it looks like we have to follow up on the 3 that we've already recommended. All right. And by February, have hopefully the first workshop, right, that will equip us to be more ready to do the work that we need to do. It's I think our interest, it would be in our interest to be in a situation where we have completed the review of the other 4 or 3 or whatever we're doing, by July. All right. So we're again in that framework. Okay. All right. We've had pretty good open discussion. Is there anything folks, any other items folks would like to bring to the table for general discussion?
I just had something that came across my screen literally today. I sat in on essentially a webinar that the South Carolina Association of Community Economic Development, SCASED is the way that most people say that acronym. A lot of people know the CEO of that group, Bernie Mazik, longstanding economic development officer.
Was a member of the special commission.
Yes, he was on Alvin's committee, economic empowerment. Anyway, SCASED, if anyone doesn't know, they have just grown in stature by leaps and bounds over the last couple of years. I think a lot of attention was paid to opening what they call the Opportunity Center. That's a great facility up on Rivers Avenue, where no one would have ever had a reason to go, except now they're there. And they host a variety of education and training pieces for nonprofits, small business, heirs, property information, and they have several offices that they rent out at a pittance to groups like the Heirs Center, Heirs Property Center. Anyway, they're a great organization for you to look into. But this webinar that they had today was targeted on the 3 lobbying efforts they're going to take up with the state legislature this year, and if it carries over into next year. And the presentation that was given on the webinar wasn't online by the time I got here, so I can't remember. The one that I think would be a really good thing for us to dovetail into an economic empowerment activity is they're going to lobby for a return of what they call individual, let's just call them individual savings accounts that governments could establish within the state code. There's an enabling opportunity for local government to establish this program that would allow people to set aside their own savings and then have it matched. And the municipality would get the match money trickling down from the state. So they're going to be working on that one. It dropped off the city's budgeting priorities, I think 2 administrations ago, but they definitely want to bring it back. And the other one is they're going to lobby for a cap on the lending rate, the debt rate that payday loan purveyors can charge. And so that needs a lot of people. They want people to go into their churches and get, people writing letters when it comes time to supporting whatever bill they're going to be putting forward. So when I can get a hold of their advocacy efforts presentation, I think it would be worth us looking at it in February and seeing how we might be able to help out, because they're all right in line with the disparities that we're trying to deliver positive improvement against.
That's a good point. The city's grant from National League of Cities, which was supposed to be about economic mobility,
Right.
has some data right, that might be helpful in making presentations. So perhaps we should have ask Mindy to come to a future meeting to talk to us about what she's found, so we can look that up.
Yeah, I think that'd be really.
Yeah, just real quick. Just kind of want to put this out there. This is, especially serving on the Economic Empowerment Subcommittee for the Special Commission. I want to say the whole word or the whole phrase. In order for us to bridge these gaps, various disparities that exist, yes, it will take energy, but it's going to take money at the end of the day. And yes, I mean, yeah, I get it. We don't want to raise taxes. We don't want to do anything that's going to blow up Stephen's email. But we're going to have to think of ways to be creative in which we can get the funding and the sources needed to push this work forward. So we just over the next couple of weeks, next couple of months, I challenge everybody just to, look at some of the other locations and places where this work has been done and some of the things that have been pushed forward that maybe we can, implement ourselves or recommend to implement ourselves. But those things are going to take money at the end of the day. So we're not going to get out of this thing without spending some money or finding some money. If that were possible, I don't think we will be here today at the end of the day, but we are. So we're going to have to figure out where we're going to get the money. Maybe it's a function of maybe we do have the money, but maybe it should be appropriated differently at the end of the day. But those are the recommendations that we are going to have to make as a commission. We might not all agree on it, but we can't push this work forward without money at the end of the day, and that being part of the conversation. So just something to think about. Just wanted to point that out there for folks. So yeah, it's going to be hard and it's not going to be popular. I know I said that before. So, but that's why we're here. We're here to do the hard work. So let's try to figure out where we're going to get this money from.
What's it called again though? Because it's new.
It's the South Carolina Association of Community Economic Development. SCACED, SCACED. And you can also Google the Opportunity Zone, I think, Opportunity Center. It comes up when you do that.
Last two things from my end is Eldon's point, and it is whatever time it is. I feel like we should have a whole meeting dedicated to, I think this is part of our workshop around words that we use and some of the misnomers. So I will just simply say the word reparations was in the special commission, and it made a lot of folks bristle because they didn't quite understand, or their interpretation of what that is interpreted different places. It comes in different ways. I had a very honest discussion with my in-laws who tend to vote a little bit differently than I do, and had explained to them what they live in Asheville. And I believe Asheville provided direct reparations. I can't remember what they voted.
Yes.
Yeah. And I had to explain to them that's one set of ways to go about it. Other ways are to create small business incubators in our cities. Other ways are there's a variety of other ways. I think it's a worthy discussion to have at some point regarding this. Maybe this is where the workshop is heading, and so we can talk about language. We can all be, I don't want to say on the same page because we're not going to be on the same page, but we all can understand that the meaning and definition of things varies depending on how you apply it. So I just think it's good time. And I think to Elvin's point, this is going to be the work. It's been fairly easy up until this point, but to Elvin's point, I'm not speaking for Elvin. But I'm here because I want to get us to a point where we leave sometimes feeling uncomfortable about the conversations. Sometimes we feel as though we've been shortchanged. Sometimes we feel as though we want to engage more. We can't because the time has run out. We got to get to that point as a commission. And I feel very hopeful that we will, because given where we've come, we are light years ahead of the special commission in terms of the work, but in terms of being able to have this conversation in a safe place, even though people are listening in on YouTube. So my point is, I feel like we're going to get there. I think Eldon's comments tonight, for me, just remind me of why we're here. So thank you, Eldon, for that. And the last thing I will say is we are good for the January 24th meeting, recognizing the special commission members. So folks want to reach out to folks. I don't know how we want to do that, but it's already been approved. It's going to be on the agenda. We just need to reach out to them.
The list of contact folks, the information you had previously, you'll try and have that.
I think it'd be really nice if the mayor sent an invitation, asking, telling them that we want to honor them.
And ask Adrian to work with the mayor.
Right. Yeah, thank you.
Good idea. Huh?
So back on the idea of money, it's going to take money. I think understanding even more explicitly, sometimes things get kind of abstract, and I think sometimes that's because we're uncomfortable talking about things, that much of our city, much of our nation was built with the labor of people who were enslaved. And although nobody is currently enslaved, their descendants are still feeling the effects of that and everything that came after it with Jim Crow legislation and lots of outright and systemic kinds of roadblocks that are put in the way of systemically oppressed people. And so I think to say it out loud, it's like, our city has stolen from people and we owe them something. We have a debt. And so I know some people will react to that, but that is the absolute truth. That's really undeniable. So, and I think we can, one source of money is from the city, but I think there are other sources of money. And so I do think we should think big and not necessarily limit ourselves because we might not have that much money from the city.
Yes, go ahead. This is so when I chair the meetings, they're not a half an hour. When he chairs the meeting, they're half an hour.
I'm just hearkening back. That's a bad. I'm thinking back at some of our previous special commission meetings, and I just want to make it clear, folks in the room and folks listening, that the points and the uncomfortableness have to be on both sides. Meaning that I want to make sure that all viewpoints are accepted, and we are not leaving here putting people on blast for saying something or questioning something, because we are all coming from a different place and we're all coming from a different knowledge base. And I just want to make sure, and I'm not saying that there are two, there's right and wrongs. We're very clear about that in this world. I'm not talking about alternative truths. And what I'm talking about is I come from a different perception of my world in my life. So my viewpoint is going to be distinctly different. And I don't want my opinion to be such that it's taken for what it is and then chastised, which prevents me from digging deeper into the work. That occurred several times at the special commission. And as a commissioner, co-chair, it didn't happen to me. And I just want to make sure that we're clear on that for folks, because it's important for all of us to feel comfortable. So far, it's been less, so far, we haven't had the distractions, which, you know, I'm praying that they continue. So
So it is, the city is, as I've observed since over the past 4 years, engaged in things like the economic mobility project, which are designed to come up with solutions, to come up with a demonstration project. Okay, to see if it works. So while what's proposed might in full scale be beyond what we could afford. Okay, you could do a proof of product. Okay, and be responsive to, you know, where's the bang for my buck? You know, does that work? And I think being willing to identify resources, right, and to get partners to do those kind of things, which may be reparative, which generate more tax dollars, right, and more productive employees, and all the kind of things that allows the ecosystem to keep growing is what we want to do. I think discussion about opportunity, all right. You have to invest to create the opportunity, and thinking about this activity as trying to figure out what we invest in to do better or to undo or repair things that were done before becomes important, but it will take money and it may take a little bit of money. It's good. Other points of discussion? I have something I want to acknowledge. Yes, Steve?
I don't know if we talked about this last meeting, but I know Jerry, you advocated for the Moja Festival in the past, and we radically increased funding in this year's budget using the accommodations tax money, thanks to Councilmember Waring's insistence. So thanks to him for doing that, and hopefully that'll be a good example of how investing money in that festival will grow it and bring more people to the city of Charleston.
Bring more tourism.
To see what keep perpetuating it.
Yeah. Good point. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's a good point in monitoring what happened, where investments are made, decisions that are made in the city's budget. Some of what we discuss may influence some of the conversation, for better or worse. We need to acknowledge the fact that our co-chair has been appointed, elected, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah.
Right? Right? So the stature of our group is risen. All right. So we should be, let's make sure we know when you want to be running the meeting so we can get our stuff on the agenda. All right. I know how that works. Exactly. Watch your schedule. No, sorry about that. But the other point,
Jared, but I guess that means they'll have a 30-minute city council meeting.
So you are all aware that why the city is celebrating Martin Luther King's birthday. There's several events. Adrian was able to secure seats for Alvin and I at the event today. I would note, like the Moja Festival, the King breakfasts and celebrations are things that are on the calendar. They should be on our calendar, and as members of the commission and the constituencies that we represent, we should be there. And then, hopeful next year, we won't be 3 seats at a table, but we'll have our own table. All right. And have something to present more than the mayor gave us a shout out today. Say the commission is formed and all that. But we really would love to have there be some substantive kind of presentation added to the oomph in terms of what this commission has generated, consistent with that. And this is just one of the many events that have turned in many activities that have kind of turned into performative things. Folks, is on the calendar. We have the shows that we know about it. but nothing happens. No hearts are changed, no minds are changed, and nobody's economy is changed by virtue of that. So that's something that we should be more aware of. I've also shared with each of the commissioners a copy of the South Carolina African American History calendar, which is produced by the state Department of Education. These are your state tax dollars. These are available. These have been done for 26 years. The calendars are all available online. They detail, profile each month, significant person of African American descent who's from South Carolina. And there's actually a curriculum that will allow classroom teachers, all right, to talk about the contributions of these individuals. So 26 years times 12 means that's a lot of people, all right, and a lot of opportunities. So share this with you. I gave copies last year to the City Council. We'll have some available when we show up on the 24th for those members who are not here today. But happy to share it with you. Anything else to come before the body? Motion to adjourn is in order. Moved to probably second, undebatable. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you.